I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where everyone knows each other by name, and nothing ever really happens. At least that's what I thought. The house across the street changed all of that. It was an old two-story home with peeling paint, faded green shutters, and a sagging porch swing that creaked whenever the wind blew. Nobody had lived there for years, not since the Murphys moved out back in 2010. Rumor was, they left overnight. No notice. No moving truck. Just gone. As a kid, I used to look out my bedroom window and stare at that house, wondering why it always looked darker than the others, even in daylight. When I was 17, someone finally moved in. It was a middle-aged man and what looked like his teenage daughter. The moving truck came late in the evening, around 9 p.m. I remember because I was doing homework when I heard the sound of something heavy dropping, like furniture being dragged across the wooden floor. I peeked through my blinds. The man looked tall, maybe in his 40s. The girl had long dark hair, and she stood completely still on the porch, staring out across the street, right at my window. I ducked away, my heart racing. When I looked again, the porch was empty. Over the next few weeks, I hardly saw them. The man would sometimes come out early in the morning, watering dead grass that never seemed to grow. The girl never came outside again. But I'd catch glimpses. A shadow passing by a window or the faint flicker of light from an upstairs room at 3 a.m. One night in November, I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of something tapping. It was soft, rhythmic, tap, tap, tap. I sat up and looked around. The sound was coming from outside. When I pulled my blinds aside, I froze. Across the street, in the upstairs window of that house, the girl was standing there. She wasn't moving, except for her hand, slowly tapping on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. Her eyes were wide open, unblinking, and she was looking right at me. I backed away and grabbed my phone. I recorded a short video just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. But when I played it back, there was no girl, just the empty window. The next morning, I convinced myself it was a dream. But that night, the tapping started again. This time louder, faster. I looked outside. Now both the upstairs windows were dark, but I could swear I saw someone standing behind the curtain. A week later, things got worse. I woke up to screaming, high-pitched, desperate, coming from across the street. I ran to the window and saw the front door of that house wide open. The man was standing in the doorway, illuminated by a single light from inside. He wasn't moving. The screaming stopped. Then he slowly turned his head toward me. Even from that distance, I could tell he was smiling. He raised his hand like he was waving. Then he shut the door. I called the police immediately. They came within minutes, but by then, the lights were off and the house was silent. The officers knocked, checked around the property, and came back shaking their heads. "Nobody's home," one of them said. "House looks empty." But that couldn't be true. I'd seen them. A few nights later, I couldn't take it anymore. Curiosity, fear, maybe both, got the better of me. I crossed the street around midnight, flashlight in hand. The air was cold and the grass crunched beneath my shoes. The porch steps groaned as I stepped onto them. The front door was unlocked. Inside, it smelled like dust and rot. I moved through the living room, where old newspapers were scattered across the floor. Every sound echoed. "Hello," I whispered. Nothing. The kitchen was empty too, except for one thing. A small framed photo on the counter. It was the girl and the man, but they looked wrong. Their eyes were blacked out with marker. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. That's when I noticed the basement door, slightly open. A faint light glowed from underneath. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me immediately, metallic, like rust and decay. The stairs creaked as I stepped down. Halfway down, I heard something. Breathing, slow, raspy, coming from the corner. I raised my flashlight. There she was, the girl. Except she wasn't standing. She was sitting on the floor, her head tilted to the side, her hair covering most of her face. Her skin looked grayish, dried out. I froze, unable to move or speak. Then she whispered, "He won't let me leave." Before I could react, the light flickered and went out. Everything went pitch black. I bolted up the stairs, stumbling into the hallway. I ran out the front door and didn't stop until I was back in my room, slamming my own door shut. When I looked back out the window, the house was dark again, completely still. The next morning, police cars were lined up across the street. Someone must have reported a smell. They found the body of a man in the basement. He'd been dead for years. The girl was never found. When I showed the officers the video I'd recorded of the tapping, they couldn't explain it. But one of them told me something that made my blood run cold. He said the Murphys, the family that used to live there, had a daughter. She went missing the night they left. That was 15 years ago. It's been 3 years since then. The house still sits empty, boarded up now. But sometimes late at night, when I can't sleep, I swear I still hear it. That slow, rhythmic tapping from across the street. Tap, tap, tap. And every now and then, when I glance out my window, I see her, standing there again, still watching me. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.